Keir Starmer has proved to be the most disastrous Prime Minister of any party. The overall impact and the overall impression of this government is one of shabbiness, deceit, and sheer unscrupulous conduct by both Keir Starmer and many of his cabinet ministers. I think that what we're seeing now is the culmination of many, many examples of what we would regard in normal circumstances and normal services being suspended under this government as unacceptable behaviour by a democratically elected government with a landslide majority and absolutely no scruples about the way they implement their power. People wonder how on earth a prime minister who is supposed to be totally in command of his job, who has one of the biggest majorities that any prime minister or government has had in recent years, could make so many unforced errors over such a short period of time. They've been in office 18 months. They've got at least 3 years to go, and I think they will go to the bitter end. And yet they have lost all credit, all plausibility, all credibility in the eyes of the voting public who put them in office. They are a great disappointment to the Labour Party voters and to others who thought that the Labour Party couldn't be any worse than the Tories. The fact is that Keir Starmer is on the record in his own words as admitting that he has no ideology, he has no favourite books, he doesn't dream about what he wants to do, he's got no plans as Prime Minister. And basically he's there almost by accident because he assumed that because he had been the former state prosecutor, that he had been the favourite of Gordon Brown, and in fact an appointee of Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister, that he would be able to do the job because it was straightforward. Being Prime Minister means being perpetually on duty. It means constantly being alert to what's happening in the world. You're making quite important decisions every few minutes, and very, very important decisions at least once a day. And it seems to me that Keir, and not just to me, but to many people in and outside of Keir Starmer's government, that he simply isn't up to the job. He has none of the mental or psychological tools required of a national leader. And this is particularly alarming at a time when we may be on the brink of military action. We may be attacked by foreign forces and we have no defence to wield to save our country. And that is because of the policies and decisions made in Downing Street by Keir Starmer. The Peter Mandelson case tells you all you need to know about all of the things I've just said. It's encapsulated in the one example of a minister, a former minister, sacked twice for misconduct from high public office. This appointment is the most senior gift in the hands of the Foreign Office and indeed of Downing Street. It carries enormous impact. It has access to the highest levels of intelligence, both in Britain and, where available, in America about what's going on in the world at large. It carries enormous responsibilities and demands the highest integrity and abilities in terms of diplomacy, all of which were lacking in the person who was finally appointed, who was Peter Mandelson. And he was appointed in the face of overwhelming and known evidence that he was unsuitable. And what we've known, particularly in the run-up to his appointment as ambassador, was the fact that he had very close relationships indeed over a very long period of time, back to the early part of this century, with the known paedophile, convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. We know, and so did the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, that he had actually spent time as a guest of Jeffrey Epstein in his Manhattan apartment at a time when Epstein himself was in prison for sex offences. We've known all this. It was written about. I wrote about it long before he was appointed ambassador. We knew that this was a possibility, that this was in the mind of the Starmer government. We knew that Morgan McSweeney, who was then the Prime Minister's most powerful chief of staff, wanted to have Peter Mandelson, who was one of his best friends, picked as the new ambassador. Keir Starmer was aware of all of this. It was made known to him, and only someone who was completely out of the loop, in other words, someone who wasn't involved in national politics at the very highest level, would have been unaware of these facts that I'm spelling out. This is the biggest crisis that Keir Starmer has faced. It's it's an unforced error brought upon himself by his own arrogance and determination, incompetence, and ignorance about the facts. He has no curiosity about what's happening, where things could go wrong. He doesn't ask questions. He leaves it to other people to come to him with solutions to problems he hasn't actually addressed for himself. And this is the point where it has all come home to roost. He now stands accused, not just by the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, or by other party leaders, but by his own voters, his own MPs, and the country at large, of lying to Parliament. He has said over and over again that due process has been followed and has led the country to believe that Peter Mandelson's security was checked and that he was given clearance by the Foreign Office. It now turns out that, in fact, he wasn't cleared by the Foreign Office, or rather by the vetting committee. He was rejected. His vetting clearance was turned down. But by that time, he had already been appointed and was in Washington serving as our ambassador to the United States, because Keir Starmer didn't even wait for that vetting process to continue. Now he has sacked the most senior member of the Foreign Office, the Mandarin Sir Ollie Robbins, for misleading him, or for something, in fact, that nobody quite understands, including Sir Ollie Robbins' closest friends and allies in the civil service, who are appalled by the treatment of their colleague. The view here in Britain, in Westminster today, among MPs, Labour MPs, ministers, privately, and certainly among the press gallery following politics very closely in Westminster, is that this is something that Keir Starmer cannot survive. He has at the very least accidentally misled the House of Commons, and more importantly, in which case he should have put the issue right the moment that he learned that it was not true that Mandelson had been cleared. He hasn't done that, and it's impossible to believe that he is allowed to continue misleading the House of Commons and MPs, which is a sackable offence, without being told that he was wrong and that he needed to put it right. So, as we speak, I think that Sir Keir Starmer is fighting for his life as Prime Minister, but he's been fighting for his life almost since he started to be Prime Minister, and he's like the Monty Python Black Knight who keeps fighting even when both arms and both legs are being cut off. The only difference between Keir Starmer and the Black Knight is that he lacks the courage and the nobility of the Black Knight.